welcome to episode 2 of the APDA Videocast Series. Last time we talked about the construction of a weight pull harness. Today, we'll show you how to check your weight pull harness for a proper fit. There are 3 key areas to check when fitting a harness: the position of the collar and breastplate, the X-back, which are the crossed straps that sit over your dog's back, and the distance from your dog's hindquarters to the spreader bar. James is wearing a good example of a well-fitting harness. The padded collar sits in front of his shoulder blade. This ensures that his front legs can move freely and easily without restriction. Next is the X-back, the crossed straps on his back. Although this part of the harness doesn't bear a weight load, it ensures the horizontal strap, which does bear the load, remains parallel to the ground as the dog pulls. The X-back should sit squarely on his back just in front of his hips and meet the lower strap at or just behind his hind legs. Finally, the spreader bar must be far enough back from your dog's hindquarters to allow full range of motion for his hind legs. Extend his rear leg down and backward as though he is pulling to check this fit. If his leg bumps the spreader bar, then your harness is too short. Now let's take a look at Kimber. Kimber is a German Shepherd and has a narrower chest and longer body than James. We're going to try a couple of harnesses on her in the hopes that she can find one to use until her custom harness arrives. The first harness we tried on Kimber sat relatively well over her neck, chest, and shoulders, but there were some issues with the rest of the fit. When we look at her shoulder area, we see that the line of her shoulder blade runs parallel and just below the harness collar. To check the fit, Sarah gently lifts Kimber's front leg and guides it forward. Notice that the harness doesn't restrict her movement at all. Moving back, though, we see an issue with the X-back. The point where the straps cross is quite forward on Kimber's body, resting in front of her waist over her rib cage. Ideally, this should sit on or just in front of her hips, keeping the harness square and centered. Again, though these straps do not bear any weight load while pulling, they do ensure the lower strap, which does carry the weight, remains well positioned. The biggest issue with this particular harness is the spreader bar. You can see clearly that it is much too close to her hindquarters. She is standing quite straight, and the spreader bar already touches her tail and very nearly touches her hind legs. The moment she tries to stretch her leg back, she bumps into the spreader bar. Her movement is terribly restricted, and she cannot safely or comfortably attempt to pull any weight. Now let's try a different harness. This one is a bit longer, but we have some other fit issues to contend with. The collar and breastplate of this harness are too big for Kimber. The collar rides low on her shoulder, and the top of her shoulder blade actually sits under the padding. We see also that the collar is loose and easily moves up and down her shoulder blade. If she were trying to pull weight, the collar would slide even further down her shoulder. Now it's difficult for Sarah to guide Kimber's leg forward. The point of Kimber's shoulder actually moves the harness itself, something she will not be able to do with any weight attached. As a result, her front legs will have a limited range of motion. Moving on to the X-back, we see that this larger harness is definitely an improvement over the first one. The X now sits behind her ribs over her waist. It is still not an ideal placement for her, but another inch or so would make a world of difference. The distance to the spreader bar is excellent, however. There is plenty of room for Kimber to move her hind legs and hips freely to get that power she needs to drive the drag weight forward. As Lisa gently guides her hind leg, it extends well back without touching the bar. When we take a look at the two harnesses side by side, the differences are clear. You can easily see how well the first harness sits on Kimber's shoulders as compared to the loose, low-fitting second harness. Her shoulder blade is parallel to the padded collar, leaving her front legs free to move unrestricted. As for the X-back, although not ideal on either harness, you can see the difference between the two. With the larger harness, the X-back straps connect to the lower strap in a much better position, very near to the back of her legs. Of course, the most obvious difference in these harnesses is the distance between Kimber's hindquarters and the spreader bar. The first bar is so close, Kimber wouldn't be able to walk normally even without a drag weight. Finally, let's compare these harnesses to our well-fitted example. Note the shoulder area, the X-back, and the spreader bar. And once more, shoulder, X-back, spreader bar. By getting your dog a properly fitted harness, you are ensuring he has the ability to pull safely and with full range of motion. Here is Nico pulling in competition. Notice that under load, his harness stays well positioned on his body. He can drive with his hind legs and reach with his front legs, and the X-back keeps the lower strap parallel to the ground so all of his energy goes directly to pulling the drag weight. What we have not talked about today is how to measure your dog for their new harness. Because of subtle design differences, there is no one way to measure your dog. Once you choose your harness maker, they will instruct you on how to take the measurements they need to make your dog's new harness. We hope this videocast has been helpful as you and your canine companion continue your weight pulling journey. We want to remind you to keep your dog's health and safety foremost in your mind. And although we gladly provide basic instruction for this sport in our videos, there is no substitute for working with an experienced trainer or weight puller.